Good. So let's get right into this. Attorney Walter Hnot. I am a little bit tired because it is Monday, and bottom line is I work really hard on Monday because there's a ton of calls that come in. Of course, I am on vacation too, which I didn't actually get any vacation on Monday. I really only get Saturday and Sunday part of the day. So here's the deal. This video is about something that's really, really important, which are the methods by which the Social Security Administration's Office of Inspector General's CDI unit investigators use documents and other means to collect statements from you that ultimately can be used against you in court. And the reason why this happens is that they're not just looking to catch you in the act of the physical thing that's going on, they're looking for you to make a statement and then thereafter show that you are lying or being disingenuous in that statement. As a result of this video is going to teach you about the methods that they collect testimony from you so that you know you better not lie when it comes to feeding them information. Because at the end of the day, they're probably going to get some video footage of you doing this or doing that to counter it. Let's go through some of the basics. So as you know, they like to go ahead and use what's called an SSA 827, which is a HIPAA. It's a HIPAA to go and buy records. Doesn't just have to be medical records. It can be all kinds of records. It can be vocational records, job stuff. It can be medical record, emergency room visits, regular PCP, specialists, a massage therapist, ooh la la, okay? So the bottom line is this, right? They use this 827. It's a grab stuff document, a HIPAA document. They use this to go get historical statements that you have made to other professionals. Why is this important? Well, it's important because it provides a foundation for what you've said in the past. And then they send out documents that will basically capture what you're going to say going into the present or future. Like you're just filling out the form right now and you're sending it in. Then they like to have either before those forms are completed or after those forms are completed, video footage of you breaking those statements. Let's get into it. So if they wanted to go ahead and send out something quick to you to get some statements, they'll usually send out what's called an SSA 455. Okay, and that's if you're already receiving benefits. That's just a quick disability update report, a quick status update. It's like your kind of like short formy kind of stuff to figure out where you're at with things. Now, if they send out a 454, which is basically a medical continuing disability review report, they're going deeper. They want to know more about what's going on. They want status updates. They want statements. All right, now here's kind of the thing you need to know about this. Sometimes, that's if you're already receiving benefits, okay, where they're going to want to know about medication, side effects, impairments, impairment changes, symptoms, signs, new jobs, new skills, new certificates, new academia accomplishments, new vocational accomplishments, etc. Okay, not to mention all of your ings. How are you doing with walking, standing, pushing, pulling, crouching, kneeling, stooping, remembering, focusing, eating bread, whatevering. Okay, so the point I'm getting at is they want to know. Now, if you are filing for disability benefits, you can also be investigated. It's a topic I don't talk about a lot, but it is very, very true. So it especially happens when you have nosy neighbors or basically a spouse or an ex-spouse, I should say, really does not love you. They do not have the lovesies for you, okay? So bottom line is this. When it comes down to this situation, right, they will sometimes, if you're applying for disability benefits, specifically look at the SSA 3373, the SSA 3369, and the SSA, I guess I would say, well, what's another? There's actually a couple. Let me see. Maybe this one? No. Well, I mean, they might look at the SSA 3380. I feel like they're going to look at the SSA 820 and the SSA 821. I feel like those are going to be the ones that they're going to look at, which is basically where you've worked, what you've earned, what you've done, stuff like that. All right, what is the 3373? The 3373 is about what your capacity to do stuff is. Okay, what are the functions you did at your jobs? Can you get along with others? Do you have any pets? What do you do for hobbies? Do you ever go ahead and interact with the police or sheriffs or other authority figures? Are you able to get dressed all by yourself? Are you able to go grocery shopping without issue? So just so you understand, these are documents that allow you to take your foot and shove it directly into your mouth because the problem is sometimes they make statements that don't look like the actual way you live your life. And then as a result of that, they can sometimes use that against you. Let me give you an example. Let's say, actually, I have a whole thing of examples here. If you guys want, we'll go right to them. I think that'd be better. All right, let's go through Let's just go through the examples. We're going to do a whole chunk of examples of how they basically get you. And I mean, remember, you have to tell the truth. You got to always tell the truth. But these are essentially situations where you'll make a statement or do something and you'll write down that you're limited in some way, and then you'll do it better than what you said you could do. Okay. So let's say that basically you're carrying grocery bags, and boy, oh boy, they're filled. And they can see that there's a jug in it, and there's some bread in it, and there's some butter in it, blah, 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 blah. And cumulatively, especially with the see-through bags, so you got to be careful with those see-through bags. Cumulatively, you add them all up, the weight is over 10 pounds. And there you are slinging it with one hand, right? You're slinging it with one hand. You said you could only lift up to 7 pounds with both hands, right? I'm not saying you said that, but a hypothetical version of okay. So the point I'm getting at is that would be a good example of them having video footage of you doing something that which you claimed you could not do. Another one that's important is basically if you're out there going ahead and moving landscaping stuff or seasonal stuff. So let's say it's snowing and you're shoveling snow. Let's say basically you have to spread sand to level out your grass. Let's say you have to put dirt and level it out. And you're using a shovel and a rake and a blob and a blobbity blah, right? Those sort of functions show your capacity to do work. Now, you might be saying, you've been sitting there and be like, hey, now, wait a minute. I only did that for 5 minutes. But remember, that's what the video captures. It captures you doing it. Now, they'll put in the usual ROI. They did it from this time to this time. So that's evidence. Hopefully they put it in there. But the point of it is, right, it's not a good look. Okay, so, the ROI reads, claimant came out of their house, picked up a 30-pound bag of dirt, proceeded to open it and spread it, used a rake to spread it, was using rake to spread it evenly for a total of 5 minutes, then went to the second bag of 30-pound, quality dirt, whatever, your soil that's used for potting, okay? So the point is, all of a sudden now, they've got you doing things that are way above your pay grade when it comes to lifting abilities. Not only that, but, if you've got a bad back or you've got an issue and they see you collecting money from the neighbors because you're shoveling snow for everybody, not a good look, not a good look. Okay, next one. Let's say you have to, let's say that you're like wheelchair or walker or 2 canes or 2 crutches, or you have a difficult time walking over, I don't know, whatever, a curb, okay? If you say, well, I have a difficult time getting over a curb, and then they've got you walking up multiple steps or climbing a little ladder or climbing a little step stool or jumping down and being real quick, that's not a good look. Because, it's just you doing things that what you claimed you could not do. And you already made the statements that you couldn't do those things to your doctors. And then, of course, you made the statements on the recent forms that they sent you that you wouldn't be able to do those functions, okay? So let's say, and the classic that they get people on, this technique is they just on this one. Basically, if you don't have your ambulatory devices with you, they're going to use it against you, right? Because every time you go out, they know certain things are essentially prescribed to you, right? So they know that every time you go out, every time you do this, every time you do that, every time every time they're expecting to see some form of an ambulatory device. Now, if your record says you rarely use them, okay, fine. But if your record says they're prescribed to you and you're currently using them, then they're going to expect to see them if they're watching you for a 2-week period, okay? Now, another thing, they watch where your car goes. I've never seen an ROI where they actually put something on the car to track it, but I'm pretty sure they're fully aware when that car, and you're the only one driving it, drives a certain distance and you're going through certain toll passes, certain this, certain that, where that thing linked to your car is linked to their, scannable, whatever, then all of a sudden they know the car reached that point at that time, yada, yada, yada. So the point is, you got to remember, when you travel, if you're on one of those highways or you're going outside of the country or taking a flight or you're, doing this or you're buying a ticket and your name has to go on it because some way, somewhere, there's some sort of it realizes where you are in the spectrum of your life. That's evidence. It's evidence that can be used against you. So just be aware, like if you're unable to drive long distances, make sure you got a driving buddy who can help you, or make sure you have a car that can automatically drive for you. Well, I mean, in about, I don't know, 6 months, we're going to have that anyways. So it is what it is. All right. Let's talk about your ability to go ahead and participate in sports, participate in fun activities, right? So if you're able to go ahead and go to a music concert, or the classic one I see a lot is people going on cruises. So the wife will become disabled, and the guy will work harder, make more money, cover the base. The wife becomes disabled, right? And then at that point, the husband, is still taking the wife out to this cruise or this party thing, or fly them to this country to celebrate this and blah, blah, blah. And the guy is like, I'm trying to cheer her up and show her that I'm going to support her. And the wife is like, yeah, I'm going to have fun. Yeehaw. Right. That's kind of that happens. You got to be careful with these types of individuals, because somebody who's able to, go on a cruise, like a 1 week, 2 week cruise, and their impairments are mental and their impairments are physical, that is not necessarily what the SSA is looking for a disabled individual. Because if you're going on a cruise and you can barely walk, how are you getting up and down the stairs? Oh, well, they have elevators? Not all of them do, A. And B, to be fair, like those boats rock back and forth, even though they're big. So I don't know. You know what I mean? And you got to walk. You got to go far to be able to get to places. I've heard every argument from people who I've represented who are like, well, when I was on the cruise ship, I only had to go here and here, and that's all I went to. Okay, well, cool. Show me the photos of the people that were on that entire ship, every photo that they took, and show me, right, how you are either not in those photos, or essentially that you are somehow, stuck in a corner, not doing anything, or not in any of the photos at all. And what you run into is usually there's a couple of damning photos, which are not good. And you got to remember that too. A lot of you will make a statement without realizing you're making a statement, because you'll just be there. You'll be present. Somebody's snapping shots, and somebody's smiling and waving at you, and you're smiling and waving around a crowd of people while claiming that you have severe anxiety or severe depression. Okay. Another one. Let's say, for example, you have a dog or a cat or a zebra or an elephant or a pony or whatever, a rhinoceros, of course. Let's say you have one of those, okay? And so you're walking them, you're picking them up, you're moving them around, you're shining their horn, all that stuff. The point that I'm getting at is that is like a CDI unit's excitable dream, okay? They get very, very excited with that stuff. And the reason they get excited with that stuff is that it makes it easy for them to basically go ahead and capture you doing activities, because your pet, right, your unicorn, requires certain physical activities that you then have to do. So, look, if you have a backyard and the fence is really high and they can't really see what's going on, fine. But if you're walking your dog down the street and you're going, let's say 200 feet, a mile, whatever, then all of a sudden, when you're talking about, well, I have to have a walker and I have to have a cane, and then you very quickly become a bullshit artist in the eyes of the person that's investigating you. All right, so another one. Let's say basically that you have, some sort of thing that you need to work on with the house. Little things are not usually a problem, okay? You're throwing a nail in somewhere, you're doing this. But remember lifting requirements, balance requirements, hand-eye coordination, agility requirements, etc. When you swing that hammer and they get that photo and they get that video, it's not always a good look, okay? That's the reality. And remember, when they do these reports, sometimes they put photos in this stuff, and the videos become available and they become their own exhibits and they're part of this whole thing and yada, yada. So it's interesting. Now, I will say this, administrative law judges usually get the written ROI, and then they have to go and request the additional information like the photos and the videos if they're not already available in their electronic records express system. Okay. All right. Now, those are things that they're looking for to counteract the statements that you've made on these other forms. Because, when you make these statements on these other forms, they have a recent statement that makes you an intentional bull bleeping liar. And when you do that, it's not good, because now they've got what they need for not just your classic civil situation, but a full-on criminal investigation situation. Okay. I'm reading Rude Rabbit. My unicorn doesn't like going outside. Very good. Very good. That's good. All right. So let's go through some of the things that a doctor might have in their reports. A doctor might have in the report that you said you have diarrhea all the time, and therefore you can't be outside for more than 10 to 15 minutes because you have to go to the bathroom. Well, guess what? When you take your dog for a walk, right, they're going to catch you essentially going for a walk that's more than 30 minutes. And then magically you're not running back to your door with this so-called diarrhea that you're always claiming. Also, remember, administrative law judges don't really believe in that BS when it comes to you having to go to the bathroom every 20 to 30 minutes. There would be nothing left of you. There would be nothing left of you. All the matter that you are would magically go out of you. Okay, I'm talking unicorn level problem. All right, next thing. Let's say, for example, this is one that nips people. I've seen this pop up from time to time. Please remember, I have to drink some magic juice, which is it's just the same bottle stuff, but I've got to do it because I'm super tired after working all day. All right, so let's go through this real quick, okay? The bottom line is this. If you have really big gaps in your medical treatment, so let's say like you're treating with a psychologist, psychiatrist for a while, and then all of a sudden, what happens is you go ahead and stop. You stop for like 2 years. And then you start up again. And right as you're starting up again, they start a review of you, a CDR. Not a good setup, right? That's not a good gig. When they do this, as they ramp up into this situation, they're creating a problem for you because now it appears that you didn't need medical treatment for a 2-year period. Now, the worst excuse you can ever use, but 99% of you will, is that the doctor can't fix me. I don't know why I have to keep going to the doctor. They can't do anything anyways. Great argument, except for the fact that it's not about going to the doctor to be magically cured of this problem, this medical condition. It's about going to the doctor to create bullet point evidence that the judges can use in the future to allow you to keep your benefits. One of the hyper egotistical, snobbery, snarky, nose in the air things that disabled people do is they act like they're better than the doctors because they know what their body is and they know how they feel. And they do. They know how they feel. They know how their body works, etc. They do. But what they don't know is how to have a medical degree from a third-party standpoint, write a legal medical notice about their current state of being to show severity, and then have that be usable by the Social Security Administration. That they don't have. That's the egotistical, they can't fix me, they can't do anything people, that they blow right through. So one of the things I want to point out with this is, if you understand that it's not about you magically getting better, I tried this medication, I tried that medication, I went to this place, I went to that place, I did this thing, I did that thing. Cool, whatever. I love it. Mwah, all the way across. But please understand, and this is important, it's not about magically curing you. It is about creating evidence that the adjudicators at the SSA can use to allow you to receive your check going forward. And no, none of you, there's a very small percentage, almost all of you are not magical unicorns that no matter what will get a check. Almost all of you have something that you've got to watch out for when it comes to receiving your benefits going forward. We don't live 20 years ago. We don't live 30 years ago when you got the benefits and the benefits were for life and everything's wonderful and you don't have to worry about anything. We don't live in that world anymore. These are temporary benefits for you to continue to prove that you are disabled under the rules and regulations. All right. One of the big things that is really easy for artificial intelligence machines, chatbots, scanning through tons of stuff, is when they see conflicting medical evidence. You essentially have medical provider 1 and medical provider 2. Medical provider 1 has a different opinion as to what your abilities are because you told medical provider 1 something different, and then medical provider 2, you told them something different. And now you have a consistency of medical testimony problem. Okay. And this is not good because it creates essentially an easy thing for a computer artificial intelligence to find and red flag. All right. When it finds this stuff and red flags it, it shows that you likely had an improvement as to your condition because you got one doctor saying you're not that bad and one doctor saying you are that bad. These are the things that cause CDRs. If the conflict of interest, or rather, no, if the conflict of testimony is great enough, it can even cause an ROI situation with a CDI investigator review. Okay. All right. Another thing. Okay. So here's the kicker. Some doctors are known. Some doctors are inherently known for continuously writing positive letters, nexus letters, RFC letters, etc., for claimants to say that they are in fact disabled. Why? Because to some degree, it's a bit of a pay-to-play game. You pay your doctor well, the doctor's going to believe you usually a little bit more when it comes to the severity level. It's just the natural way of how things work, okay? That's why we don't trust the SSA doctors, and the SSA doesn't really trust your doctors. That's why they have this whole weight of evidence situation, right? That's why we have judges. If everybody trusted everybody, we wouldn't need judges. Okay, so that's fine. So what does this mean? If you go to everybody else's doctor that was approved for benefits using that person, you are setting yourself up for probably a closer look because inside the SSA system are individuals that are tagged doctors, clinics, etc., that they have found continuous repetitive support of letters being created to show that the person is de facto disabled. Okay. As a result of this, this can be something where they look for statements that will really cue up their interest. And then they will send you a document that requests a statement for you to go ahead and basically say, hey, are you this bad? And you'd be like, yeah, I'm definitely that bad. And now you have your medical doctor backing it. And now all of a sudden they're out there videotaping you. And now all of a sudden, things don't match up. Okay. All right. Another one that you have to consider, and I think this is very, very important. I think this is incredibly, you have to keep this in mind. You have to follow medical treatment as it is prescribed. You have to follow medical treatment as it is prescribed, or if you're not going to do it, immediately go find another doctor who's willing to go ahead and work with you towards a different direction. Why? If you consistently refuse doing the prescribed treatment, okay, what will happen is that the SSA will notice that you are not following doctor's orders. You are, conflict of improvement function. You are not doing the medication as they prescribed and creating cocktails and blah, blah, blah. When this happens, it's not good because they expect you in Western medicine world to go ahead and follow what your doctor is saying. So if you don't want to follow what your doctor is saying, you absolutely have to find a new doctor who's going to support the direction you want to go. Now, who is this usually a problem for? This is usually a problem for the people who are always like, I know my body, I know my thing, I know what the medication does to me, I know what the symptoms are, I know what the signs are, I know what the side effects are, blah, blah, blah. Cool. Awesome. I love you dearly. You're a beautiful, wonderful unicorn. With that said, okay, just to make things kind of clear, it is important. It is important for you to understand that at the end of the day, the doctors are key to adding validity to whether or not you can actually be believed by an adjudicator. Why don't we inherently believe automatically these claimants when it comes to their testimonies? Why don't we inherently trust essentially you when it comes to your ability to deliver information that is worthy of the judge believing with full, confidential, credible weight? Why don't we believe you? Well, that's because one thing is very important. At the end of the day, we don't really trust the claimant because what's on the line? Benefits. Lots and lots of benefits. Money, health insurance benefits. It is crucial to understand that these benefits are big enough to potentially bias somebody who doesn't have money. And if you don't have money and you need that money to survive, then that's going to be crucial for you to go ahead and say what you need to say to get the benefits. Okay? This is incredibly important. Now, as a result of this, you have to understand that judges are not going to believe a lot of what you're saying. It's crucial that you understand that, because a lot of you come at this like, oh, I should be found disabled because I should be found disabled because I'm this person. My impairments are this way. Remember, if they're doing 5 hearings a day, they usually approve 2 to 3 of those 5 hearings. One of those people could be a quadriplegic. One of those people could be a veteran wounded warrior. One of those individuals could be somebody who spends a lot of their time in insane asylums. The bottom line is you might not be as bad as you think you are. And it is crucial for you to make it over the ego wall. Get a little chisel, find a little wall, make a little crack in that wall, and then beat the hell out of that wall with that chisel. Just beat it until you have a large opening, because you're going to have to go through it a couple of times. The point is, you've got to go ahead and basically get over your own self-expectation of how disabled you are to start building the claim that makes you look like, sound like, and be the disabled person that which you claim you are. Okay. All right. Excellent. Another thing that can cause CDRs, and this is, I think, very, very, very important. Okay. I think this is incredibly important. All right. So let's go through this real quick. When you go ahead and have a doctor state that you are, throwing your testimony, or not trying as hard as you could on a test, or malingering, or you're basically just here for the bennies. You're just here for the check. You're just here for the crazy check. You're just here for this benefit, whatever. Cool. That's going to hurt the claim, because going forward, you will have an issue with proving that you are an honorable, moral, truthful unicorn. Cool? Everybody good with it? So the bottom line is, if you know that your record has this in it, or if you're wondering, does it have that in it? My doctor seems a little like they don't support me. If you believe this might be a situation, you need to get the records. You need to read the records. If you have an attorney, have them get the records and read the records, and then make a plan with you. Okay. Okay. There's something else I want to go ahead and point out. I think this is really important. The pharmacy. When you go to the pharmacy, right? If you don't consistently pick up your medication, okay? If you don't consistently get prescriptions for your medication, if you don't consistently use your medication as you're supposed to, and they're getting readings when you go to the doctor that show that you're not, or that there's a little bit too much of this in your system when there shouldn't be, a winkety wink, right? Winkety wink. You didn't catch it? I'm talking about people who abuse drugs. That's where we're going with it. So the point of this is, just to be very clear, is that pharmacies, the evidence that comes from them, are usually not very helpful to show that you are disabled, but they're very helpful to show that you might be a BS artist. They are very helpful at that. Okay. All right, let's go through another thing. So let's say that you claim on your SSA reports that you're not working, and yet they got you out there driving a car, picking up groceries, driving people around. They got some sort of wage report. They got some sort of, thing that popped up on the web about a 5-star review about how kick-ass you are at basically picking up strawberries at Walmart. Whatever. It is what it is. The point is, it's not like back in the day where you'd go work on a farm and who the heck would know. It's not like that now. It's just not like that now. All right, another thing, and this is important. If you advertise, I can't believe I have to tell you this, but a lot of you are not going to realize this until I say it. Please give me a moment. I need to get some magical power juice going on. Okay. If you go ahead and advertise on your vehicle that you are a company, or that you do certain services, cleaning services, shoveling services, massage services, whatever services, it comes up in the report when they videotape you. Let me just say it again. Caroline's Cleaning Services. First hour is free. The rest is blah, 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 blah. It comes up in the report. A lot of you guys think like nobody's going to check Facebook to see that you put an ad up. They're going to check Facebook because there are literally programs that scan the entire existence of social media, scrape it, and pull everything that you've posted or something that refers to you, the location you're in, past services you've done, or friends that might have something to do with you as well. Okay. Next one. Okay. The SSA used to suck at catching where a spouse would have a business and you would work in it as a disabled person and nobody would be the wiser. The SSA is not bad at that one anymore. They're really good at that. So if you are working for your spouse or working for your friend and it comes down to them trying to figure out and put together the dots, they're going to do it. And when they do it, you're going to be sitting there thinking everything's fine. And then they're going to send you a report. And then you're going to be faced with a tricky situation. Do you tell the truth? Right? If you tell the truth, you're probably going to lose your benefits. Okay? That's true. But you told the truth, so they can't catch you in a lie on a form, a federal form that for the rest of the time exists. Or you could lie. But if you lie, they probably are looking at it as an opportunity to catch you in a gotcha statement on a federal form that will exist for nearly the rest of time. Cool. All right, next one. Let's say you're applying for unemployment benefits. Younger judges tend to let that slide. Older judges don't. Bottom line is this: when you apply for unemployment benefits, you make a statement that you're ready and willing to work. Obviously, that ain't consistent with the disability 5-step sequential process, or even the 8-step sequential process. So just be aware of that one. Okay, next one. Let's say, for example, you are essentially... Okay, so here's one that I had a 1-hour private session on one of these. Just a side note, you guys know I do those private sessions for like a half an hour or an hour. You know, mini contract is below, blah, blah, blah. The point is, I saw one of these. If you're going to state and claim that you are not working, please remember when you file a workers' comp suit or begin the paperwork for a workers' comp, claim, settlement, notice, whatever, you are creating evidence that you are a liar. Okay? That you are a liar. Or a personal favorite is that when you go ahead and get injured and then you go to the hospital and get tested and they find drugs in your system, that is going to pop up with a review. And I need you to just realize that's a thing. That is a thing. That is a thing. Okay. So when a lot of you are like, well, I just like to do a little puff here and there. I just like to do a little needle here and there. I just like to do a little, schwabby of the gumsies, right? Whatever. I like to flick the unicorn horn. What? I don't care. I don't care. Okay. But the point is, a lot of you don't realize that you're making statements without realizing that you're making statements. It's just, you gotta understand. It's all right. Classic thing. Reaction, right? So something happens, there's a reaction, right? It's supposed to be an equivalent amount. I guess they're proving with science that's not always it, but the bottom line is action, reaction, right? We'll have to figure out, that black holes and all that stuff down the line. But the point is action, reaction. When you do something, it creates a new world, a new existence on the timeline of your life where statements were made. So imagine if you get pulled over by a cop, you could go ahead and have one conversation based off of sentences that you come up with, Or you could have another conversation based off of sentences that you come up with. I always know when I'm with somebody that gets pulled over, if they are somebody who is educated and smart about dealing with law enforcement. And I always know that somebody is a complete idiot when it comes to dealing with law enforcement when they get pulled over, because they turn into a chatty Cathy and can't shut their mouth. The main thing you've got to realize is that you have to think before you speak. You have to think before you do. Many of you think that when you come across somebody with authority, that you have to make them like you. That's not the game. The game is show them the disabled person that you are, that you claim to be. They're not your friend. They're not there to hold your hand. They're not there to give you cuddles. They're not there to feed your unicorn. They're there, very simply put, to go ahead and figure out whether or not you're medically severe. They don't need you to be their friends. They just need you to be able to comply with their requests and be proactive with proving that you are disabled. So do you have to prove that you're disabled when you're applying? Absolutely. Do you have to prove that you're disabled after you've won your benefits? Absolutely. And that's the part that most people kind of lose focus on. Okay. Next one. Classic thing that pops up, and we did a whole video on bank deposits and them getting more and more access into your bank. And, obviously the Republicans want a small government. It doesn't seem like that right now because they're having to do massive changes, which, again, if you don't know economics, if you haven't had an economics degree, you don't know international trade, please go watch some YouTube videos on it. I'm really sick of getting these like blankets. They loved Biden and therefore I should love Biden, economic like little paragraphs. And here's the thing that bothers me. Like I said, if I could do one gift, it would be to give like everybody an IQ boost of like 30 points. Like that's reasonable. Like if everybody in America got an IQ boost of 30 points, most of the problems that are happening in this country would disappear. I know some of you are sitting back and going like, no, they wouldn't. Yeah, they would. If you made everybody smarter, you would see a lot less bleep ups that turn into cluster bleeps that then are just total kaleidoscopes of catastrophe. All right. So the reason why this is important, if you have a bank account with repetitive and continuous, basically deposits, that's not good. Because for somebody who's not working, there needs to be an explanation, especially when you have repetitive and continuous deposits. The bottom line is this. The SSA, they've got machines and programs that can search through your accounts in this country and many other countries. They can look up what cars you have, what, licenses you have, what, basically titles you have, what notes you have. They can look that stuff up. Your bank account needs to look like the disabled person that which you claim you are. Okay? All right. Very good. All right. Now I feel better. Do you feel better? Because I feel better. All right. Good. All right. Let's go through some more real quick. Let's say that, this is another thing that's starting to get people. You know how like all the neighbors and everybody has like cameras on their house now? Okay. You know how your neighbor doesn't like you, right? Your neighbor isn't, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, right? And all of a sudden, when an SSA, CDI unit investigator goes and talks to the neighbor, turns out neighbor doesn't like you, or very common, a neighbor is curious about you. So that neighbor watches you every day, walk your dog every 4 hours, and they can see it on their security camera. And they can see it on their security camera from the office that they had to drive 45 minutes to and sit at for 8 hours a day. Who's a jealous, sassy snarkers? That would be the person who has to go to work and make only a little bit more than what you're making to basically go ahead and have your benefits, which is my statement. Nobody makes anything anymore. The benefits aren't enough. The work isn't enough. Nobody makes enough money. The US dollar is demolished. Again, I'm already seeing some people post some comments about how they love Biden and his economic policy. I get frustrated. I'm frustrated at this point. I'm just frustrated. Like if I don't know, maybe I should do like some basic classes on how economics works. You know what I mean? Like I've started, like we're doing more of these things where we do debates because you know what happened to Charlie Kirk. We're going to do more of those because he was a YouTuber and we need to do debates because otherwise same thing's going to happen to me and that's not acceptable. And I think honestly, one of the big things is like, we just have to, all right, so there's a missing link. You know how we have universities, you have to pay a lot of money and go to them, get educated, and then you can go out into the world and get a job, right? That's the usual. I mean, sure, you can go later in life, but that's the usual course of action. Okay, cool. Then what happened was the internet came out and everybody was sharing how their trade works to get views to make more money. And then all of a sudden, people were getting a practical application version of education that pushed them way beyond what the academia institutions could actually do. And their degrees suddenly lost a bit of luster. That luster was not so strong. The shine was not like a diamond. So as a result, what happened was, basically people realized, oh, instead of having to work in an office for my entire life, I can do this, or I can do that, or you know what, I can even do that. The point that I'm getting at is, at this point, you have almost no excuse for not knowing about how money works. Even if you have a lower IQ, even if you have anxiety, even if you have depression, even if you can't sit for more than 15 minutes at a time, you should prioritize understanding how money works. Because you're going to come across some way, some fashion, somehow to make money, to create a better life for yourself, even though you are disabled. I've seen a lot of disabled people do this. And and I'll tell you how the phone call comes in. They go, Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much. Thank you so much for getting me my disability benefits 5 years ago. Now I have some questions. Okay, cool. What's going on? Well, I now do this on the computer. And my computer is this setup, which allows me to do it. And I'm thinking that I can make about $5,000 a month doing this. Okay. I know that's over SGA. What do I do? How do I ramp into this? How do I get the SSA to let me have some benefits and this and yada, yada? And I walk them through it. It is crucial that people learn about economics and how money works and how to make money. It is so crucial. And it's just frustrating because I don't know how to, and I'll do some videos. Would you guys be interested in videos where I basically show you how economics works, how you can do micro investments and increase money and have investment income? It's not going to help the SSI people, but the SSDIers, the retired people, it's going to help them, right? I mean, if you want, I can do that. Michael Horsey said, "Show me the money." That's right. He said, "Damn it, I want the money." Yeah, I think we should do that. Because at the end of the day, I've talked to so many people that are like pigeonholed into this, like, all I know how to do is sell, wheelbarrows. All I know how to do is dig that type of ditch. All I know how to do is clean those types of, unicorns, whatever. Okay. Now shine that horn. So the point is, that came off a little bad. The point is, okay. Yeah, I came off a little bad. The point is, I think we should do some of those videos. I really do. I think we should do those videos. Princess Diana said, I suck at math. Everybody sucks at math for the most part, except for a very small percentage of the population who just gets their giggles on. When they see that line of letters and numbers and squiggles in weird areas, corners of a line that are not supposed to use upper corners. Like, why is that cubed? Where did that come from? Why is that line so wiggly? Hieroglyphics are not meant to be in math, but yet they are. The point I'm saying is, I get it. But I think the point is, I see kosher, no comment on math. I think the point is, if I were to give you guys some basics on how investments work, and what the market is going to do, you probably get in a better direction. I think that's going to be important. All right. So you guys know the basics. If you have like a shared account with somebody, don't do that. That's setting yourself up for failure, because then they have to question the expenditures of another person who's not really in control of what the rules are, doesn't know what they are. So they're just going to F you in the long way. Another thing is, let's say that you basically have like back problems and you just buy a Harley, or you buy a sports car, or you buy a horse. Not a good look. Not a good look. Another thing is this, like, let's say, you just bought. So here, let me give you an example. There are certain things where they're going to figure out what's going on. Okay, so let me give you an example. In the ROI reports, right, they will ask you, are you doing any, or they'll ask you on one of these forms, hey, are you doing any sports or hobbies? You'd be like, nah. But then they'll get a video of the inside of your garage as you open it and walk out. And what does it show in it? Golf clubs, recently used. Well, how are you going to explain that one? Oh, my 12-year-old kid likes to go ahead and play golf. That's not going to be a correct way to answer that legal question. Okay. Of course, you guys know, if you're creating Facebook videos, if you're creating X videos, if you're creating YouTube videos, stuff like that, that's not going to help your situation, because then they're seeing you actively do these things. Okay. Another thing too that I would say, we've never had so many people get in trouble for, abusing the system or just doing it for the check. Like, we've never seen so many videos pull up on TikTok that show like this person who's abusing welfare, this person who's abusing SSI. That's becoming a more prevalent thing that we're starting to see. So I think the one big thing that you'd have to kind of keep in mind is that you just need to be careful with what you post. Okay. Another thing are profiles that you create for work. If you've got a recently updated LinkedIn profile, that is not a good look unless you're doing a 9-month trial work period, 3-month extended eligibility period, or the 5-month trial work period. The 5-year ticket to work program. Another thing that I think is important. If you guys do, for example, something where you are fundraising, and the fundraising is so that you can buy something that normally a disabled person with your impairments would not be able to use, like, let's say, I don't know, let's say a scooter. Let's say, I don't mean like a disabled scooter. I mean like your full-on Italian, gelato in hand scooter. If you're doing one of those to buy something that you normally wouldn't be able to utilize as a disabled person, you're creating the evidence they need against you. Now, the point of this video was to explain how they basically go ahead and do things with the paper forms. They'll send you, basically an A2. They'll send an A27 out to collect information on you. They'll send you a 3373. They'll send you other forms to basically, like a SSA 455 or a 454, which will basically collect information about your current abilities, right, where your current impairments are, any new jobs, any new medications. There's another thing that you kind of have to keep in mind with this whole situation, which is that sometimes they will call you and interview you without you knowing who they actually are. Depends on state laws, depends on Fed laws, but sometimes they will call you to collect statements. Sometimes they will tell you that they work with the SSA, that they just wanted to get some clarification on some things. When they get some clarification on some things, those are things that they're potentially looking at for you to either lie or tell the truth on. If you lie, you know what's going to happen. In fact, the next video we're going to do is an exact example of what's going to happen. Okay, another thing. Sometimes they will bring you in for a face-to-face interview. They would like to see you. If you come in and you're walking around like you have no issue, and yet you are supposed to be completely and utterly blind, that's a problem. And it's an easy example, but you understand where that all goes. Okay. All right. Another thing that sometimes pops up that they use against you, let me give you an example. If you are part of some sort of other lawsuit, and you make sworn statements about what you saw or what happened, okay? Oh, yeah, I was there. I was going on a jog. I was across the bridge. I could clearly see them. I had been sweating, but I was still able to know what was going on. Oh, sweetie. Jeez Louise, sweetie. Sweetie, my dog, my chubby chub is next to me. Or, for example, okay, something where basically, you make a statement about being out of state. And that statement doesn't exist anywhere else. And that statement is then used to hurt your benefits. These are all things that they can collect to create those gotcha moments where you have made testimony that ultimately can hurt you. And remember, they rely on your statements similarly to how they rely on third-party statements, what your neighbor might say, what the grocer might say, blah, blah, blah. When they do this stuff, the thing that you have to kind of keep in mind is that at the end of the day, there's cameras everywhere, okay? Your neighbor has some Arlo cameras. Your other neighbor has some Ring cameras. Your other neighbor has some Amazon cameras. Everybody's got cameras. And if your neighbor feels the desire, the interest, the warm, fuzzy feeling to share that footage of you walking because they have to go to a job and you don't, then it's going to sting. It's not going to help you. It's going to be a problem. Okay. All right. Another thing that I think is important. Debt collection. When you make statements to a debt collector about how you're trying to get more money doing this or get more money doing that, debt collectors usually have no problem handing over those records of the statements you've made about trying to get additional money. It is crucial that you understand that that stuff can and will be used against you for them to go ahead and figure out where you fibbed. So this video is about explaining to you types of things that they look for, types of things that they are interested in finding where you made a statement that you couldn't do something, but in reality, you clearly could. All right, now real quick over here, I don't do Medicare questions. So if you have any Medicare questions, please go ahead and reach out to Chapter. Here it is, askchapter.org/disability. You can call them. It's a free call and ask them about doing a tune-up specifically on your medical insurance, specifically Medicare, Medicare Advantage stuff. They're brokers. They work with you to find a good plan that fits your future surgeries, medications, whatever. Also, massive amount of fraud coming up in this arena. Again, massive amount of fraud coming up in this arena. These guys have been following that fraud. There's like $15 billion worth of fraud going on between different, Medicare groups that were requesting way too many payments for things that they never did. The Villages Health is one that's getting very, very spicy, where basically they're going to be sold and all this stuff and yada, yada. So they're aware of the fraud that's going on. If you're wondering if your doctors are part of it or your plan has something to do with it, please reach out to them. They can help you with understanding that fraud situation better, and then let them work with you to figure out essentially whether or not you have a plan that's going to work for you in a positive way. Remember, you want to save money with that. You want to save money wherever you can. All right. With that said, please remember to hit the like button. There's a lot of people in here watching. There's not a lot of people hitting that like button. Please hit that like button right now. If you could, I would super appreciate it. We're going to prepare for the next video, which is going to go over an actual hot sheet released from OIG about a woman and her husband who fibberooed on some documentation from the SSA. I was able to go into Pacer and pull the specific case details that were allowable. A lot of the documents were sealed, but I did pull some of the ones that basically were not sealed to give you the information as to specifically what happened. So please remember to hit that like button. Also, subscribe, become a member if you like. We do private sessions where you can access me for 30 minutes or an hour. Mini contract is below. Also, I go live on Mondays and Thursdays. I'll be going live tonight, although it won't be for super long. Also, very important, please remember, okay, at the end of the day, to be nice to each other. And if you can, go ahead and do things that make you happy. I know that this video was scary. I get that. but it is meant to prepare you to do things, to change the way you live, to keep your benefits. That's why I'm doing it. If you're a little worried, you're a little scared, it's okay. You will make it through this situation. You will get to a spot where you feel better because you know how it works, which is why I need to make these videos about investments and stuff like that. Because if you guys knew more about how to invest, what money can do, how it works, you move in a better direction, even if it's micro investing. I'll catch you at the next video in about 10 minutes. Attorney Walter Hnot. Remember, if you need a disability attorney, the most viewed, subscribed to, and clicked on Disability Attorney in America. On the 27th, it's 22nd today, on the 27th, the law firm that I've owned and operated will be 12 years old. So I will catch you all a little bit later. We'll rock and roll from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, and thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.